Hey, everybody, and welcome back to A Better Computer. My name is Matt, and this is a podcast. So, this is the first episode of A Better Computer podcast where I'm going to talk about whatever's on my mind for about 15 minutes in the world of tech. So, this will be a lot of Apple stuff. It'll be gaming, it'll be AI, it'll be browsers, it'll be task managers, it'll be these sorts of things, the things that you know I'm interested in. And I'm just going to do up to 15 minutes about something. The plan is to release episodes new on Monday morning. This episode is the first one, so it'll be a little out of sync. But yeah, just wanted to talk about something that's on my mind, something I think is interesting, something that I just want to expound on a little bit more in this sort of medium. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you subscribe. There'll be video versions on the YouTube channel when it makes sense to do so, and there'll be audio versions every week. So let's jump into it. I have two topics today, so let's just get going. The first one is a quick look at the Apple in 2025, the 6 Colors report card. And this is a thing that Jason Snell has been doing for 11 years, as the 11th edition of it. And I think it is an awesome resource that he's created. And it's one that gets more valuable every year as we get more context. So basically, at the start of every single year, he will email out a bunch of Apple pundits. So these are like writers, podcasters, video creators, developers, basically people who make a living or have a significant hobby in commenting on and thinking about Apple. And basically, he gets a sense, he gets the feel for the room, the vibe, as he says, for what people think about these things in Apple's world. And so basically, when you get part of the survey, you rate everything that Apple does, for example, the Mac, as a 5 to 1 scale. So 5 is the best, 1 is the worst. And so you just give it a score. Everyone has their own system for giving scores, but because we have this year over year, we kind of get trends that start to develop. And so if we look at this year's scores, we see a lot of things in the 3 to 4 range, which makes sense. There's a couple things falling into the 2s. And then hardware reliability is the only one that broke 4.0 as an average. It was 4.5, and I totally get that. Hardware reliability on the Mac and the iPhone and the Apple Watch and basically every single thing they make, which is impressive for a company who makes so many things, is truly outstanding. Their hardware is absolutely on point. I would totally agree with that. The low scores are World Impact at a 2.1. I'll get back to that. And then Vision Pro at 2.2. And did you know that a couple weeks ago, the Vision Pro had its second birthday? It totally slipped my mind. I had no idea. Wasn't even thinking about it. I got mine sitting on a shelf back here that does not move. It gets very dusty because I have nothing I want to do on it, which is pretty rough. So I don't disagree with the 2.2. I could even go lower. I think it's about as disastrous as the first 2 years could have gone for a new product that Apple hyped up so much and pitched as kind of their next big thing. It's really gone nowhere, and 2 years into it, sales are surely down from when it started. This is in stark contrast to the other products we kind of see on this chart. And there's just no interest in it. There's no developer interest. There's no user interest. Like, no one's talking to me about my Vision Pro. Nobody cares about it. On YouTube, I don't make videos about it because nobody cares about that. It's pretty rough. I would say, at best, the Vision Pro is really an Apple TV Pro because the only mainstream use case people seem to have for it is for watching video, which is okay, but not really what they pitched. But let's move on to the most interesting one here, which I think is the Mac. And why is the Mac interesting? Well, if we go down to the change from last year, the Mac actually had the second biggest drop. So World Impact dropped 1. Again, I promise we're getting there. But the Mac dropped 0.7. So a pretty significant drop in Mac quality, which for me is a little unintuitive because the Mac is, in my opinion, in the best state from a hardware perspective it's ever been in. Like, the Macs you can buy right now are universally astoundingly good quality and pretty good value for the money even, besides the Mac Pro, which is a weird mess. But no one thinks about that, so I wouldn't really count that against the lineup too much. But yeah, why such a big drop? And why, when I look at the historic numbers, I'll try to describe this for audio listeners. This has been going since 2015. So in 2015, it was 3.7. In 2016, it dropped to 2.6 and it stayed pretty low, slowly recovering up through 2019. And for those who don't remember, the 2016 to 2019 era was the butterfly keyboard era. It was the slow and hot Intel chips era. It was the very high prices era. It was the USB-C only era. It was A lot of things. It was also the era where Apple kind of seemed like maybe they thought the iPad Pro was the future of computers. What's a computer and all that stuff. And so people really felt not good about the Mac then. And I would say I've been using Macs for 31 years. I think the Mac, that was about as dark a point as the Mac has been in since the 90s, in my opinion. It was not great, even when it wasn't selling well in the past. Like, at least it was high quality for the most part. Issues along the way, but anyway, I thought it was a dark time in the Mac, and the scores reflected it. Then in 2020, when they released Apple Silicon, we have a huge jump to 4.7, and that was when, at the end of the year, at the end of 2020, they released 3 M1 Macs, the Mac Mini, the MacBook Pro, 13-inch, and the MacBook Air. Those computers were astounding. My work computer is an M1 MacBook Pro. It is still kicking. It's still doing well. And yeah, it's an outstanding jump in performance for the Mac. And we saw it hover kind of around 4.6, then 4.2 for 3 years in a row. And then it dropped in 2025. And why was that? Is that because the hardware got bad? No, it is Tahoe. Tahoe has not been received well by the Apple enthusiasts. And I get it. I don't think it's an improvement. I think it is a regression in many ways. But some of these quotes are pretty rough. These two from John Siracusa and John Gruber really stood out to me. John Siracusa says, Tahoe is the worst user experience update in the history of the Mac. Every change is either wrong-headed, poorly executed, or both. And Gruber says, Tahoe is the worst regression in the entire history of macOS. And listen, I've got 30 years with the Mac. Those guys have more, and they've been talking about it seriously more. So, that's a pretty rough review from some of your, again, biggest proponents. These are guys who really love the Mac, who live and die by the Mac, and will use the Mac for the rest of their lives, surely, just like I will. That's not what you want them to be saying. And I think that in general, it is a bad situation where Apple fans are not debating how much better this software update made things. It's we're debating, well, how much worse is it? Like, we all agree it's worse, but like, how much worse is it? Like, is it a big deal it's worse, or is it way worse? And I think that's rough for a company who a lot of us followed in the first place because they were so good at software. So yeah, pretty rough. So yeah, they really hate Tahoe, and they're really upset about it. And I think one of the things that can't be ignored here, and now we are finally getting to it, is the social impact. So if we scroll all the way down to Apple's impact on the world, you can see back in 2015, it was 4.3, and then it slowly dropped. It kind of hovered around the mid 3.5s, and then really took a tumble. It went from 3.8 in 2023 to 3.1 last year to 2.1 this year. And it's pretty obvious what's going on here. You don't even need to guess. It is because Tim Cook specifically is basically Donald Trump's number one fan in the business world. Tim Cook is at Donald Trump's house every weekend for a party. He's going for movie nights. He doesn't care if it's a movie that his competitor, a competing studio made. He's over there. He's chilling with Brett freaking Ratner. He's giving Trump trophies. He's complimenting his policies whenever he can. He loves the fascist in chief, and the fascist in chief loves him. That's great. That's what he wants. He wants the compliments. He lives on compliments. That is what he wants. He wants to be adored, he wants to be feared, and he wants money in his bank account. And Tim Cook is happy to do all of these. He's donating money whenever Trump needs it. You want to destroy the White House and build up some frickin' ballroom? Here's millions of dollars. You want money for your inauguration? Here's millions of dollars. No, I don't do this every time, but I do it for you because I love what you're doing. You're doing great. You are wonderful. And what drives me crazy about it is that there are people, and I think you see these in some of the comments, is people will say, well, look, Tim Cook is the CEO of a big company. He has responsibilities. And Apple as a company there's fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders to never lose value, to do whatever it takes. Morals be damned. If Donald Trump asks them to murder people, they need to murder people, because you just need to do what it takes to make sure that your stakeholders, your shareholders continue to see benefit. Maybe they wouldn't go that far, but I kind of sometimes think maybe they would. And I don't think that's reasonable. I think that the most powerful people in the world should stand up for things when they think that they're wrong. I think that just because you are powerful and have something to lose doesn't mean that you shouldn't stand up for what you think is right. And I think that that is, in fact, you are the most impactful, most powerful people in the world. You can do that. You should use your power. You should deploy your capital. You should deploy your influence to do these things. And I think it is ridiculous to expect that just the little guys, those are the ones who need to really make a difference. Because once you're rich and powerful, you can't you can't rock the boat, right? You have to just like go with the flow, do whatever it takes to get by, to maximize your revenue. It's the little people who need to stand up and champion their own rights. And I think that's a sad way to look at the world. So just wanted to talk about that. But basically what I'm saying is, when this is how people feel about you, when people do not like what you're doing and they think that you are a net negative on the world in a lot of cases, they're not going to be very patient when you release a software update that isn't very good, right? I suspect in previous years, if this happened like 3 or 4 years ago, then this would have been higher. And we can see that in the numbers because we've done this so long. If I go back to the 2015 one, we have Adam Angst saying, I think Apple does a very good job in this area, or at least tries to. We have Dan Frakes saying it feels like Apple is finally one of the companies truly leading in these areas, those being environmental and social issues. Stephen Hackett says, I like that Tim Cook is using Apple size for social impact. And then in 2016, actually, we have people talking about the FBI looking for a backdoor into the iPhone, and Apple resisting this. And you see like people like Marco Arment, who's a huge critic of Tim Cook now, said Tim Cook's handling of the FBI phone unlocking controversy was stellar and may go down as a highlight of Cook's tenure as CEO. And that's a very different message than he's giving today about Tim Cook. And I totally get it. I think the FBI thing was great. And yeah, when you basically have lost that moral high ground and you've shifted from a company that people are happy to say that they support and the Apple stickers on the back of their car and all that stuff, and you just feel like any other tech company that's soulless and has no morals and doesn't care about anything besides profits, then yeah, you have less patience when they release a software update you don't like. So the other thing I wanted to mention briefly here at the end as we wrap up is Dithering, which is a podcast that's hosted by Ben Thompson and John Gruber. They record 2 episodes a week. They're 15 minutes long. You may kind of get an idea for where my inspiration for this show came from. And they talk about whatever tech. And Ben Thompson is an interesting person to follow for me because I think his insights into business and markets, I think, is really interesting. I think it's really insightful. I think he's very smart. I think he's a pretty good guy on the whole. But I have a different worldview than him on a couple things, and I very much disagree with him sometimes. And one of the things that he's kind of seemed to change his tune on an episode of Dithering this week is the how Microsoft has been handling Xbox, specifically Game Pass, and their acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. So they acquired Activision Blizzard King for nearly $70 billion a couple years ago. I did not think that was a good idea for anybody involved. He loved it because this is one of the things we differ on. I think Ben Thompson has never seen a mega merger he didn't love. He supports them all, it seems. Maybe there's one he doesn't like, but I haven't seen it. But he loved this one, thought it was a great idea, thought it would be very good. Turns out spending $70 billion and not having a good way to make that money back quickly has been an albatross around Microsoft's neck, so that's not great. And then Game Pass, which again, I have been not a fan of for a while, and he really loved and thought it was the future of software, of video game distribution. Now he's like, maybe that wasn't a good way to actually make money on your games, and maybe you devalued them, and maybe that actually wasn't a good business model, and actually the whole thing was a mistake. And yes, I would agree. This is what I've been saying for years. I do not like Game Pass. I think that it devalues money or games. I think much in the way that streaming music subscriptions are basically a mass delusion that we're actually paying artists a fair amount when we're absolutely not. Like, it's crazy. I think it's devaluing games. It's making people think they don't need to pay for games. They'll just buy free games or whatever. Like, I think Game Pass is a mistake. And also, it doesn't make money for Microsoft or the game publishers in a real way. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to wrap it up quick here, and I'll see you here next time. Bye-bye.